Throughout human history, we have crafted objects of beauty, utility, and devotion. They fill our museums, sit silently in private collections, and are unearthed from the dust of forgotten civilizations. We see them as inert relics, windows into a past that is gone forever. Science tells us they are nothing more than stone, metal, and wood, arrangements of atoms subject to the known laws of physics. The stories that cling to them are dismissed as folklore, superstition, or the product of overactive imaginations. But what if some objects are different? What if the whispers of curses that follow a flawless diamond or the chilling tales of a simple wooden chair are more than just stories? When the trail of misfortune, madness, and death connected to a single artifact becomes too long, too consistent to be explained away as mere coincidence, we must pause. We must ask if these legends are not fables, but warnings. Could an object, a witness to a moment of extreme violence or profound emotion, somehow absorb that energy? Can a powerful intention, a dying curse, leave a tangible imprint upon the physical world, an echo that reverberates through time to touch anyone who comes near? This is a concept ancient cultures understood intuitively, a knowledge perhaps lost to our modern rational world. They believed that some things were not meant to be touched, owned, or even seen. In this journey, we will look beyond the glass of the museum display. We will investigate the world's most terrifying artifacts, objects that seem to possess a mysterious and malevolent power of their own. We will examine the evidence, the history, and the chilling testimonies. We begin with a gem so beautiful it bewitched kings and queens and led them all to ruin. It rests today in the silent, reverent dark of a museum vault. To the millions who gaze upon it each year, it is an object of breathtaking perfection. 45.5 carats of impossible blue, a celestial depth that seems to pull the light from the very air around it. When the lights are dimmed, it glows with a fiery blood-red phosphorescence, as if revealing a secret, burning heart. This is the Hope Diamond, a geological marvel that took over 1 billion years to form in the violent crucible of the Earth's mantle. It is, by all scientific measures, one of the planet's greatest natural treasures. The official history is as polished as the gem's many facets. Geologists classify it as a rare Type 2b diamond, its stunning blue color caused by trace amounts of boron atoms. Historical records trace its journey from a mine in Golconda, India in the 17th century into the hands of a French merchant gem dealer named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. He sold the massive stone, then known as the Tavernier Blue, to King Louis XIV of France, where it was recut and became the magnificent French Blue, a centerpiece of the French crown jewels. According to mainstream historians and gemologists, this is where the verifiable facts end and the myth-making begins. They argue, quite rationally, that the infamous curse is a modern invention, a brilliant piece of marketing cooked up in the early 20th century. The narrative of death and despair was likely created, or at least heavily embellished, by jewelers like Pierre Cartier to add a layer of mystique and allure for a new kind of wealthy, thrill-seeking clientele. The story sold the stone. It was a legend crafted to enhance value, nothing more than a ghost story for the aristocracy. The tragedies connected to it are simply the result of cherry-picking history, forcing a pattern of coincidence where none truly exists. But is it that simple? When we look closer, the sheer volume of catastrophe surrounding this single object is staggering. The trail of ruin is too persistent, too specific to be dismissed so easily. The legend begins with Tavernier himself, who, after selling the stone, was said to have met a grisly end torn apart by wild dogs in Russia. While this account is disputed, it sets a dark precedent.
The diamond's most famous owners, King Louis XVI and his queen, Marie Antoinette, were consumed by the French Revolution, both publicly beheaded at the guillotine. During the chaos, the French blue was stolen, disappearing for decades.
It resurfaced in London around 1812, recut into the smaller, though still massive, stone we see today. It passed through the hands of a Dutch jeweler, Wilhelm Fals, who was brutally murdered by his own son, a son who later took his own life in despair. The list of victims continues, a chilling litany of misfortune. Owners and even handlers met with financial ruin, public disgrace, suicide, and madness. The pattern became undeniable with its final private owner, the American heiress Evelyn Walsh McLean. She purchased the diamond in 1912, openly mocking the curse. But the stone, it seems, had the last laugh. Her 9-year-old son, her heir, was killed in a car accident. Her husband left her for another woman and later died in a mental institution. Her daughter died of a drug overdose at the age of 25. Finally, Evelyn herself died in debt, her family's vast fortune all but gone. Coincidence? Or is the Hope Diamond a nexus of tragedy, a silent catalyst for destruction? To find an explanation, we must look beyond recorded history and into the realm of its forbidden origins. The oldest legends whisper that the diamond was not mined, but stolen, that it was once the single blue eye of a statue of the Hindu goddess Sita. The theft was an act of ultimate sacrilege, and with it, the temple priests laid a powerful curse upon the stone, a divine retribution that would follow the eye of their goddess for all eternity, bringing ruin to any who dared possess it. This theory suggests the diamond is not evil in itself, but is the eternal vessel of a targeted, righteous anger. Other more metaphysical theories propose that a unique object, like this diamond, forged under unimaginable pressure and possessing a flawless crystalline lattice, can absorb the psychic energy of the events around it. After centuries of theft, betrayal, greed, and death, it has become saturated with human misery, an inert object charged with a tangible, malevolent force. This belief in the power of sacred objects is not unique. It is a thread that runs through nearly every ancient culture on Earth. From the curses guarding the tombs of Egyptian pharaohs to the sacred relics of indigenous peoples, there was a universal understanding. Some things carry a power that transcends our comprehension. To disturb them, to claim them out of greed, was to invite a darkness that logic could neither explain nor repel. Today, the Hope Diamond sits immobile, its curse supposedly broken, neutralized by being gifted to a museum and owned by everyone and no one. Or is its malevolent energy merely dormant, waiting? It remains a profound paradox, an icon of perfect natural beauty that seems to have authored unparalleled human suffering. The stone suggests that a curse, a powerful and destructive energy, can be bound to an object formed by nature. But what happens when an object is believed to be not just a vessel for a curse, but a prison for a conscious, thinking entity? Some artifacts, it is said, do not just bring misfortune, they bring a presence.
Our journey now takes us from the velvet-lined displays of the world's most prestigious museum to a place far more common, yet perhaps far more unsettling, an online auction. The object of our investigation is not a priceless gem forged in the heart of the earth, but a humble wooden wine cabinet, small enough to be held in 2 hands. It is unassuming, plain, something you might pass in an antique store without a second thought. But attached to this simple box is a story so terrifying it became one of the internet's first viral urban legends. It began in 2003 with a desperate listing on eBay. The seller was getting rid of the box, and his description was not a sales pitch, it was a warning. To the rational mind, the phenomenon of the Dybbuk Box is a textbook case of modern folklore creation. The accepted mainstream explanation is rooted in psychology, not paranormal activity. It is the power of suggestion magnified by the echo chamber of the internet. A creative antique dealer, Kevin Mannis, invents a compelling ghost story to sell an old, unremarkable box. The story goes viral. Each subsequent owner is already deeply familiar with the legend. They are primed to expect terrifying events, and so every nightmare, every strange noise, every bout of bad luck is interpreted not as a random occurrence, but as the direct action of a supernatural entity. It is a powerful narrative, a digital ghost story that feeds on itself, a classic creepypasta. But this simple explanation begins to fray when you examine the chillingly consistent testimonies of those who have owned it. The story begins with a 103-year-old Holocaust survivor. The wine cabinet was her most prized possession, brought with her from Poland. She always called it the Dybbuk Box, and she warned her children to never ever open it. When she died, her family, ignoring her strange request to have the box buried with her, sold it at an estate sale. This is where Kevin Mannis, the antique dealer, purchased it. The moment he opened the box, his life descended into a nightmare. He was plagued by horrific visions of a ghoulish old hag. He saw shadow figures darting in his peripheral vision. A strange smell of jasmine and cat urine filled his home. He tried to give the box away, to his mother, who immediately suffered a stroke, to his sister, who refused to keep it, to his girlfriend, who left him. Terrified, he put it up for auction online, detailing every horrifying event. The next owner, a college student named Iosif Nitsky, documented his experience on a blog. He and his roommates suffered from insomnia, saw shadowy figures, and began losing their hair. Finally, the box was acquired by Jason Haxton, a skeptical museum curator who was determined to debunk the story once and for all. Instead, the phenomena intensified. He developed hives and a strange skin condition. He began coughing up blood, and he too was haunted by the same specific nightmares that had tormented every other owner. The patterns were too specific, the physical ailments too severe to be explained away by mere suggestion.
This forces us to consider the alternative theory, one rooted in ancient Jewish mysticism. A Dybbuk is a malevolent, restless spirit, the dislocated soul of a dead person that can cling to and possess the living. The original owner, a woman who had witnessed the unspeakable horrors of the Holocaust, may have been attempting to contain such an entity. According to this theory, she used an old ritual to trap the spirit inside the wine cabinet. The box was never meant to be opened. It is not a haunted object, it is a prison. When Haxton finally had the courage to have the box opened and its contents analyzed, he found no treasure. Inside were 2 locks of hair, a granite slab inscribed with the Hebrew word shalom, 1 dried rosebud, and other strange trinkets. These were not items of value. They were components, the very bars of a metaphysical cage. This idea of binding a spirit to an inanimate object is not a modern invention. It is a foundational concept in spiritual traditions across the globe, from the legends of King Solomon trapping demons in a brass vessel to Middle Eastern folktales of powerful jinn imprisoned in oil lamps. Humanity has long believed that the spirit world could be captured and contained. The Dybbuk Box, though its story is recent, may be a terrifying modern example of an ancient and dangerous spiritual technology, a practice rooted in a forgotten understanding of how to command the unseen world. The box tells us that horror need not be ancient to be profound. Unlike the Hope Diamond, which seems to inflict a passive curse of bad fortune from afar, the Dybbuk Box suggests something far more terrifying, an active, malevolent intelligence trapped and raging against its prison. It is a deeply personal form of horror, one that attacks the mind, the body, and the soul. The story of the Dybbuk Box forces us to confront the possibility of entities bound to man-made objects. It shifts the mystery from a curse of energy to a prison of consciousness. But what of objects that hold a different kind of power? Not a soul, not a curse, but a lost knowledge so advanced
It seems to defy the very laws of history itself.
Our investigation has so far explored objects of immense value and of profound spiritual dread. We now turn to an artifact whose power is of a different order entirely. It is not a curse whispered in a temple, nor a soul trapped in a box. It is a mystery forged in fire and steel, a piece of technology that simply should not exist. We speak of the Viking sword. For centuries, it was the most feared weapon in Europe. But among the Vikings themselves, one name was legendary, a mark of almost supernatural power and quality, a name that warriors would pay a fortune to carry into battle: Ulfberht. Forged between the 9th and 11th centuries, these blades were the pinnacle of the warrior's art. Archaeologists have unearthed around 170 of them, scattered from Ireland to Russia. The mainstream historical view is that the inscription found on the blade, plus VULFBHRT, is not the name of a Viking, but the brand name of an exclusive weaponsmithing workshop, likely located in the Rhineland of what is now Germany. The Vikings, who were as much traders as they were raiders, recognized the superior quality of these Frankish swords. They became the ultimate status symbol for a Viking chieftain or king, a blade so perfectly crafted it was believed to be almost magical in its strength and sharpness. For centuries, this was the accepted story. Ulfberht swords were simply the very best swords that could be made in the European Iron Age. But that simple explanation was shattered not by a historian, but by a metallurgist. When modern scientists placed the blade of a genuine Ulfberht sword under a microscope, they found something impossible. To understand the anomaly, we must first understand typical Viking Age steel. It was made in a bloomery furnace, a primitive process that resulted in dirty steel, filled with impurities called slag. This slag created weak points in a blade, making it prone to shattering in the cold or bending in the heat of battle. The Ulfberht, however, was different. It was crafted from what is known as crucible steel. This is a material with a remarkably high carbon content, up to 3 times higher than other swords of the period, and, most critically, it is almost completely free of slag. This ultra-pure metal allowed a smith to create a blade that was both incredibly strong and astonishingly flexible, a weapon that would hold a razor-sharp edge and not break upon impact. It was, in short, the perfect steel. And here is the mystery. To create crucible steel, one must heat iron ore to a temperature of 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to liquefy the metal and allow the impurities to burn off. Yet the furnaces of 9th century Europe could, at best, reach only half that temperature. The technology to create a material this pure and strong was not believed to have been invented in Europe until the Industrial Revolution, 800 years later. The Ulfberht sword is a paradox. It is a high-tech artifact existing in a low-tech age. So, where did this impossible material come from? One theory suggests that a single, secretive guild of European smiths discovered a lost technique, a unique furnace design or a chemical process that allowed them to create this steel. It would have been a secret worth more than any king's ransom, a process so closely guarded that it was never written down and was ultimately lost to the mists of time. However, a more compelling theory looks to the east. The Vikings were not isolated barbarians, they were masters of global trade. Their longships navigated a vast network of rivers known as the Volga trade route, a waterway that connected the Baltic Sea all the way to the Caspian Sea and the markets of Persia and beyond. In places like ancient India and Central Asia, a near-identical material was being made: Wootz steel, the legendary metal used to forge the famous Damascus blades. It's now believed that the Ulfberht smiths were not making the space-age steel themselves, they were importing it. Raw ingots of crucible steel traveling thousands of miles along treacherous trade routes to be forged into swords by the only European smiths with the skill to handle such a precious and advanced material. The Ulfberht sword, then, is a testament to a lost, interconnected world, shattering the myth of the Dark Ages as a time of primitive isolation. It is physical proof that pockets of extraordinary technical knowledge existed, knowledge that would be lost and not rediscovered for many centuries. It tells us that our ancestors had a mastery of the physical world that we are only now beginning to appreciate, and that our neat linear timeline of human progress is a fiction. This blade is an anachronism of engineering. It holds no curse. It traps no soul. Its power is entirely physical, a testament to a lost science that allowed its wielder to dominate the battlefield. And yet, its very existence is a mystery that cuts through our understanding of the past. This blade forces us to reconsider the technological capabilities of our ancestors. Its power is not supernatural, but a product of a lost, almost industrial science. But not all terrifying objects rely on such grand historical mysteries. Sometimes the most potent power comes not from a forgotten technology, but from a simple, personal act of hatred, forever staining a mundane object with a legacy of immediate and inevitable death.
Our final object of investigation is not hidden in a vault, nor was it discovered in a forgotten tomb. It resides in a small, quiet museum in North Yorkshire, England, and it is, by all appearances, the most ordinary object we have yet encountered: a simple, dark oak tavern chair. It is not beautiful, it is not ornate, and it is not ancient, yet it is displayed with more caution than any priceless relic. It hangs high upon a wall, securely fastened, far beyond the reach of any curious visitor. It is placed there not for admiration, but for safety, because the local legend, a story stretching back over 3 centuries, is chillingly clear. Anyone who dares to sit in this chair will die a sudden and violent death. To the skeptic, the tale of the Busby Stoop chair is one of the great ghost stories of rural England. It is a fantastic piece of local folklore, the kind of tale a clever pub landlord might embellish or even invent to draw in tourists and fill his tables. The list of so-called victims is a collection of tragedies, to be sure, but they are viewed as unconnected, coincidental events. Over the decades, these disparate stories of accidents and ill health have been woven together, retrospectively linked to the chair, to create a narrative that is compelling but ultimately fictional. In the mainstream view, there is no curse. There is only a powerful story and our human tendency to find patterns in chaos. But the story is a persistent one, and its origins are rooted in a documented act of brutal violence. In the year 1702, a local counterfeiter and drunkard named Thomas Busby murdered his own father-in-law, Daniel Outie. Busby was arrested, tried, and condemned to hang. On the day of his execution, he was granted a final request: to have his last meal at his favorite pub. He sat in his favorite oak chair, finished his drink, and as the guards came to lead him to the gallows just outside, he stood and uttered a curse for all to hear: "May sudden death come to anyone who dares sit in my chair." For 2 centuries, the chair remained in the pub, a morbid curiosity, but one that locals were careful to avoid. The curse, however, found new life during World War II. An airfield was located near the pub, and young pilots full of bravado would dare each other to take a seat in the dead man's chair. According to the pub's lore, not a single one of the men who sat in it survived the war. The legend solidified into terrifying fact in the 1960s and 70s. A series of shocking deaths were all linked back to the chair. 2 Royal Air Force pilots sat in it, and just hours later died when their car swerved off the road and hit a tree. A builder took a seat in it one afternoon, and the very next day fell from a roof to his death. The stories become even stranger. A cleaning woman, sweeping the floors, stumbled and fell into the chair by accident. She died shortly thereafter from a brain tumor. Finally, the landlord, Tony Earnshaw, having seen enough, moved the chair to the cellar. But even there, people claimed to be terrified by it. In 1972, he donated it to the Thirsk Museum, with one non-negotiable condition: that it must be displayed in such a way that no one could ever sit in it again.
If it is not a curse, what could explain this litany of death?
One psychological theory points to the nocebo effect, the sinister twin of the placebo. If a person truly believes something will harm them, their own mind and body can help bring it about. Someone who sits in the chair, knowing the legend, could be so consumed by fear and anxiety that they become prone to accidents. Or the immense stress could trigger a catastrophic health event. Their belief in the curse becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The alternative theory is far darker. It posits that a dying curse, especially one uttered with the pure, focused hatred of a condemned man like Busby, is a real and potent force. It suggests that this powerful blast of malevolent human emotion can be psychically imprinted onto a physical object, especially one the person cherished. The chair, therefore, is not just a piece of wood. It is an anchor for Busby's lingering rage, a focal point for a vengeful energy that lashes out at any who would dare to claim his seat. This belief in the power of a final curse is a timeless and universal fear, embedded deep within our collective psyche. The chair now hangs silent, its deadly power seemingly contained. It is a chilling artifact, not because of its connection to gods or demons, but because its story is so intensely human. Its alleged power comes from a single, raw, and relatable emotion: vengeance. It serves as a stark reminder that the most terrifying forces in the universe may not be ancient evils or alien entities, but the darkness that can fester within the human heart itself. From a gem that bankrupted kings to a box that traps a soul, from a sword forged with impossible technology to a chair that carries a murderer's final, hateful breath. Each of these artifacts tells a different story, yet they all lead us to the same profound and unsettling question.
What do we truly know about the world we inhabit and the objects we share it with? Our journey has taken us through a history of the impossible. We have seen a flawless diamond that seems to carry a divine curse, inflicting ruin upon all who claim it. We have investigated a simple wooden box, believed to be the prison of a conscious, malevolent entity that actively attacks its keepers. We have held up a sword, forged with a lost science, a piece of technology that defies our linear understanding of the past. And we have stared at an ordinary chair, said to be stained with a murderer's dying wish, a vessel for a purely human hatred that endures beyond the grave. Each of these artifacts, in its own unique way, challenges the very foundations of our modern worldview. We are taught that the world is made of inert matter, of atoms and molecules governed by predictable, observable laws. In this framework, a curse is a coincidence, a haunting is a hallucination, and a lost technology is simply a gap in our historical records. We have, in many ways, rationalized the mystery out of our existence. But in doing so, have we blinded ourselves to a deeper reality? Our ancestors saw the world differently. To them, the physical and the spiritual were not separate. An object could be imbued with an intention. A place could hold a memory. A powerful emotion could leave a tangible echo in the world, one that could resonate for centuries. Was this mere superstition, born of a lack of scientific understanding? Or was it an intuition, a sensitivity to the subtle forces of the universe that our modern senses have been trained to ignore? The true power of these stories is that they force us to look again, to question the comfortable certainty that everything is exactly as it seems. Look around you, the objects that fill your own life, a piece of jewelry passed down through generations, a piece of furniture that has witnessed decades of family history, a simple gift imbued with the love of the person who gave it. We call these things sentimental, but perhaps they are more. They are silent witnesses. They are vessels of memory, emotion, and time.
And it is in this realization that we find the most profound and lingering question of all. What secrets are sleeping in the mundane world around us, just waiting for the right person to listen?